Hey everybody, it's Gabriel from Automation Anywhere. Today I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Yousuf Khan, our own CIO here at Automation Anywhere. Yousuf, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you again, Gabe, and hopefully we'll meet again very, very soon in person.
I look forward to it. Yousuf, why don't you give the audience a bit of background on your role at the company and your experience, what's brought you to the company here at Automation Anywhere?
I'm Yousuf Khan, I'm CIO of Automation Anywhere. I joined the company in January of this year. To say it's been an interesting time to join the company is a bit of an understatement. This is my fifth role as the very first CIO for a company. And I've worked with companies where I've seen a sort of steady sort of growth that similar to what we have done. I oversee all business applications, corporate infrastructure. Of course, I speak to a number of our customers and CIO peers on a regular basis. And probably most importantly, focus on things like corporate security and of course, use of our own product and deploying automation across our own company.
All of a sudden, we enter a global pandemic, the likes of which I don't think anybody's ever seen, at least none of our employees, that's for sure. Tell me, how has this affected your team and the way you're approaching business?
Yeah, it's been interesting times to say the least. I think probably the most thing that really got to all of the team was how we were able to rally together to respond to how we supported all of our employees to be productive and to be able to make sure that they have all the tools and technologies available to them. Of course, the starkest difference to all of this is the fact that, before we had, maybe 30, 40 offices or so, and now we have over 2,000 offices to support. And so that's a really change in dynamic in terms of how you provide support to all of your employees. And then the other things that we really focused on very heavily was enablement. There's a lot of employees who, yes, we do have a number of employees who already work from home on a regular basis, but majority do not. And so being able to make sure that we're able to give guidance on both on security, on productivity, and connection collaboration was a key part of how we changed the focus of the IT department to support the rest of the company.
I think for me, during all of this that have emerged, one is the concept of speed, right? Whether externally with the testing, with getting information quickly to make decisions, right? I feel like that's something that as a CIO, you think about often. And the other one is safety and security, right? Because, and I think those two are interrelated, right? With the speed of information and knowing, you likely can feel more secure and more safe. But from a technical perspective, what are some of the things that you are leading from the organizational perspective that speak to this concept and these themes of speed and security?
One of the things that I've heard pretty much across the board in speaking with customers and partners and also lots of friends in the CIO community is that the demand for automation fundamentally has increased just in light of kind of what's happening, right? And so one of the things that as a result of that means that that's definitively a signal which says you need to work faster simply because the business dynamics are changing in your industry, right? There are financial firms which are getting a lot more, say, mortgage refinancing applications in than they ever had before. There are more online orders that are coming into place. There are some companies which are getting a lot of inbound sales to be able to transact those and have order management. These are critical things. Onboarding new employees or trying to process changes in a workforce in some way, shape, or form. All of the demands that come in to an internal function, whether it's IT, HR, or finance, all of those is pretty consistent that those have increased. So as a result of that, your ability to respond as a function to be able to better serve the needs of your internal customers and external customers is kind of pretty consistent, irrespective of which company you're at. If I take an example, I spoke to a peer of mine who's worked in, of course, in the travel and leisure industry. Their business has been quite affected. They're still running pretty stable, of course, but their biggest focus is making sure that they're able to cater to their customers in a much more effective fashion, whether that's cancellations or rebookings or otherwise. Being able to communicate and keep the customer experience really, really optimal, that's going to be driven by automation, and it has basically been. In other cases, we've seen a number of my CIO peers who reached out and they said, well, look, we're looking at being able to optimize our onboarding for employees as well as some of the transaction processing, simply because of a large part of the data that's sort of coming into place. How do we do that? And so when you start to think about an onboarding process, I mean, we've had new people join our company whilst this has been happening. And so their new hire orientation has been in their living room. But we've changed the process by driving a little bit more automation. For example, the check-ins of those employees by their managers or people in other departments is no longer physical. It has to be done virtually. And so automating, even notification of that or being able to program that has been a huge benefit where you actually get a much positive experience. If you look in the larger side, when you look at customer experience, being able to connect with your customers, communicate with them, being able to process their transactions, being able to either refund them or being able to basically update them. These are all key things which people need to be aware of. And if you have just a larger influx of data coming into systems, the only way to be able to respond to that data and make decisions is going to be through automation.
Talk to me a little bit more about those automations that have been developed that maybe were down the line on the roadmap or maybe even not thought of, but what are some of the ones that have popped up that are sort of either critical or very important that all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is powerful?
Yeah, so a couple of examples. One is definitely on the onboarding side of things. We've been able to really start to optimize that process more and more, look at it end to end and start to figure out where we can really automate and improve the process using automation, whether it's access to systems or notifications or being able to reach out to employees about certain tasks they need to do from an orientation standpoint. On the IT operations side, well, we looked at how we're able to automatically assign tickets to members of our team using RPA, using certain keywords that maybe come in or specific time zones or certain locations. So that used to be a manual task. Somebody has to go in, and this is very common. You have to triage requests. It happens in HR operations, in IT operations, and in finance operations. Are you able to take several hours of someone's manual effort and automate that? So we were able to do something like that, which of course aids a whole bunch of things. On the security side, we're able to basically take in a lot more signal data that's coming in when it comes to threats and be able to do a daily dashboard that gets exported into an email format. The reason that's important is because typically, if I want to send out a security report, I'm not going to ask somebody to log into a system. I want to be able to provide them with something which I can distribute easily. So that I've been able to easily do because I get a daily dashboard, which gives me an alert on everything that's kind of going on, everything that we're watching, and it makes us much better, improves our security posture.
But what are some of the silver linings and bright spots you think are going to come out of this?
Probably the biggest silver lining that I observed personally was that, people are able to rally together towards being able to not just keep things running operationally, but how we think about how we're able to provide benefit of some of the technology we're doing in terms of having an impact on society. I think more importantly, it's just about how we're able to much better connect as a team. And I think that's been the big silver lining from my standpoint where, and I've seen literally hundreds of stories over the last few weeks from both internally here as well as other companies where, teams have really been able to much better collaborate, prioritize, and really be able to operate as this has been kind of a testing time for everyone, irrespective of what you look at in terms of the impact. And I think that's really been the unifying piece where people have really got together and said, how do we make sure that we're able to better serve our company and community and also our customers?
Listen, Yousuf, I really appreciate the time and thanks for sharing. If anybody has any questions from a CIO perspective or from an IT perspective, how can they reach you?
You can email me directly and or connect with me on LinkedIn. More than happy to basically share.
Appreciate the time. Thanks so much.